And yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, everyone. Jay, that is your special new introduction for the show. How do you like that, brother? Had that done special for you.
That's amazing. I feel like the guest of honor. I appreciate it. It's good to be with you today.
Yes, and don't forget the next time you see Toby Howell, he was in on that too. So thank Toby and Jay.
I'll do that.
The other sure. Jay, as in Jones. Well, I have to say, I appreciate you, first of all, getting me signed up for the newsletter. Let's start off with that, Jay. Tell the audience if they want to get emails from you weekly, and of course, when the legislature's in session, sometimes more frequently, to keep everybody up to date, how they can get your newsletter.
Yeah, so we have a newsletter called Non-Debatable. And if anybody wants to sign up, you can just go to nondebatable.com. Put in your name and email, and that'll get you on the list. And the reason we started it, non-debatable is a parliamentary term that's used in the legislative process. But we saw a need for it because a lot of times the news that you see in the headlines from a lot of the traditional outlets only give you part of the story, or worse, frame it the way they want you to hear it. So non-debatable, we send it regularly during the session, and then as news develops outside the session as well. But it's really focused on what's happening at the Capitol, what's happening in state government, and it's pretty direct and to the point. And we've gotten great feedback from it because sometimes it's hard to keep up with what's happening at the Capitol. The action never stops, even when the legislature's gone. And so, yeah, I'd encourage anybody that's interested, go to nondebatable.com. You can sign up there. And a lot of this is also on our website at opportunityarkansas.org. But non-debatable will get it right to your inbox, so you get kind of the latest scoop on what we're working on and what we're seeing in state government.
Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, it's a great newsletter. I sat and I got to read that today because Jay was kind enough to sign me up and get me started. And Jay, of course, when I read the article that came out in Non-Debatable, instantly wanted to talk about this because there's a lot of parents in the audience that will be very concerned. Now, folks, I've been a strong proponent, as has Jay, of the Arkansas Learns Act and the ability, because I believe education is the key. And sometimes it's the poorest parents that want the most for their children. And like I use the Baltimore Public Schools reference, it's not because those kids aren't intelligent, they are. It's because the system is failing them that they all have a collective D average for graduating students out of the, did you know that, Jay, out of the Baltimore public school system?
Oh, I believe it. And, we see some of that in districts here in Arkansas where kids just get passed along. And it's really shameful, frankly, is what it is.
Yes. And I was very proud of the legislature and Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who spearheaded the Learns Act to offer universal education freedom to every parent to decide how their child learns. Now, of course, the teachers union, not necessarily the teachers, but the teachers union were against this. And I say this much, if you get a high quality teacher that is dedicated to his or her students and does a fantastic job, that teacher will be in demand. And they too can follow the students to a higher improving school and do that. Now, I know there's some litigation pending about the Learns Act. I know the Little Rock Board of Education just put in an amicus brief. But what I really want to get into is this. I was shocked to see that the Arkansas Department of Education just dropped this 47-page draft rule that would create new restrictions on education freedom for families. And I'd like to get into that with you. And I have to admit, until you guys made me aware of it, when you said in the article, not a single state legislature that you guys had reached out to had seen it yet. I'm not a legislature, but I usually try to stay pretty much in sync with what's going on, as you know. And I was shocked by this.
Well, that's right. And, we were watching and paying attention because, as you mentioned, this program has been successful, and it's really a landmark achievement for Arkansas that we've made so much progress providing universal education freedom. I mean, right now the program is serving nearly 50,000 kids across the state, and it's helping exactly the kind of people you described, parents who want better for their children. In some instances might just need something different for their children. If they're just not a good fit at the local public school, if they're getting bullied, or if they want their kid to get in an educational setting that aligns with their values so that they know that their kids are being taught the right things. Now,
Yes.
for the first time, they have that option. And so we were watching because there was a bill introduced this session that kind of opened the door to placing new restrictions on this program, to rolling back some of those freedoms. And we knew that this rulemaking would be coming. And so it dropped just a few days ago, and there's a lot of things in here that are concerning. We've already started to hear from parents who are concerned about it. And that was really the subject of this and why we wanted to make people aware of what's happening.
And I was very interested as part of the newsletter where you had the polling that you have been conducting by Opportunity Arkansas. I found that, there's such broad support for educational freedom, with 81% of parents now supporting this, up 20 points in just 2 years. And, I don't have a kid in school at this point, but I'm one of those people that's 100% for it for the reasons that I've already enumerated.
Yeah, and, I'm glad you mentioned it's up, which shows that as this program has grown and expanded, people are even more supportive because they see that it's working. So voters across the board, majority of voters support education freedom. What else is really interesting there, we also asked in the poll whether they support keeping this program broad and flexible, meaning that we are trusting parents to make decisions and not over-regulating and adding all these additional rules. And a majority of voters support keeping the program broad and flexible, which really shows that Arkansans value the freedom component of education freedom. We should give parents the ability to decide and put them in charge and no longer let the state dictate every single thing about how your child is learning.
Yes, and there are a lot of parents, and I've actually heard from teachers too throughout the listening area that they were none too happy about this DEI nonsense or trying to actually pit one group of children against each other, and it's not the case. Most of us grow up, and not care about someone's ethnic background or their skin color. We care about how they conduct themselves as a person. And I thought this was interesting. I saw this experiment that I actually read about it rather than see it, where they put a group of children that were approximately 4 to 5 years of age of every different ethnic background that you could get on this earth and every different tone of skin. There's about 30 children that they did with this sample, and none of these kids knew each other. And they go into the classroom and they're all playing together. Now, is there an occasional argument over a toy that one kid didn't want to give to another? Yeah, but it was very apparent that none of the kids cared about anybody else, how they looked. They just played together. And these teachers were upset by this, and parents rightly too. And then there's sexualization of children, and I use that term in a broad sense. Where they're exposing children at an inappropriate age to some of this material, and parents don't like that.
Well, that's right. We've seen that happen, and that's one of the reasons that we've had such strong interest in education freedom, because parents don't have to wonder what their kids are learning when they're in charge of deciding the curriculum, they're in charge of deciding the school, and they have an option for the first time. I mean, for years, people have been segmented based on their zip code, and your school was determined by the neighborhood that you lived in. And for the first time ever, this year, that's changing in Arkansas. And people understand the power of it. It's changing lives. We tell a lot of these stories of kids who are now in a better setting. And that's the reason the program has to be defended, and one of the reasons that we're watching when these rules come down that would hurt families. we want to make sure people understand, because people have a voice in the process and they need to make their voice heard when there are attempts to limit or qualify education freedom.
Absolutely. Now, Jay, you know that about this time each Thursday we have to do a traffic and another break. But before we do that, folks, let me tell you, and of course, Jay and I will be back, and we're going to start getting into the details on this proposed rule, so you, the parents, can reach out to the Department of Education and to your state senator and state representative and help quash this. And welcome back, everyone, to the Steve Finnegan Show. You are listening to me, your professor of democracy, along with my good friend, Jay Robertson from Opportunity, Arkansas. If you're just joining us, I'm going to ask Jay once again to tell everybody how you can sign up for Opportunity Arkansas's newsletter, which Jay did for me. And then, of course, the very first newsletter I read is about this they're trying to alter the LEARNS Act with a regulatory rule from the Department of Education, which is, I believe, contrary to the legislative intent. So, Jay, welcome back. And let's start off once again. Tell everybody how to sign up for this newsletter.
Yeah, so Opportunity Arkansas, we have a newsletter called Non-Debatable. You can go to nondebatable.com and sign up there to make sure you get this to your inbox. As you mentioned, we sent out this special edition this week, because this is something that happened quickly and parents need to know about. We're going to have more to say about this. So I would encourage folks to sign up today to ensure that you're getting the next edition that comes out, because there's a lot to go through about this new rule change. Yes.
And that's where I'd like to begin. Now, this rule has not taken effect, ladies and gentlemen, and as I read and Jay reiterated in the last segment, a lot of legislators have not heard anything about this until Jay or Nick Horton have made them aware of this, and the same applies to me, and I try to stay on top of things. Now, Jay, before we get into the rule, it looks like this rule is more going after parents who actually homeschool their kids than parents that might pick another school to send their child to.
Well, it's going to impact all families that are using education freedom accounts, and a lot of the language in here is going to make it harder for any family to use those accounts. But you're right that homeschool families are going to be certainly more drastically impacted. And I know we have limited time here, so I'm not going to go through every part of the rule. I'm just going to focus on the thing that is most concerning, that's the most substantive change. And that is the department has proposed a rule to exclude parents from using these funds for team sports as an extracurricular activity. Now, that's not anything that was in the LEARNS Act. It's not anything that was in the bill that was passed this session to modify the LEARNS Act or the EFA account program. And in fact, we got whispers a few weeks ago from parents that they were hearing team sports might not be allowed. And, that's just completely contrary to the whole idea of education freedom.
Absolutely.
And so we reached out and got guidance that no, team sports are absolutely allowed. And then lo and behold, we saw this rule proposal drop, and that's why we've sent this out. It's easy to think about extracurriculars and sports as just kind of an add-on or a luxury. But the point here is education freedom allows a parent to build a education for their kid, and that's going to look different for every single family. But team sports are an integral part of education. I mean, there's a reason that every public school in Arkansas invests heavily in athletics. It's not just about physical development. It helps that, but you're teaching kids how to operate as part of a team, how to be responsible. Absolutely. It improves academic outcomes. And so there's no reason that this was never even considered as part of the legislative debate. And now the department has come in and proposed this rule to just blanketly exclude parents from using these funds to sign their kids up for a team sport.
So in other words,
we're already hearing from parents who are concerned about it.
No baseball, folks, no soccer, no cross country, no football, no track, no basketball, no volleyball. And then banning out of state field trips was another that just caught me off guard that they would do that, because those are so important too, especially at the high school level.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a lot in here, and some of this, unfortunately, was authorized by the legislature this session. And so, limiting field trips to in-state, that's something we oppose, but it was part of the law. And so that's being implemented here. But they're also layering on all these other requirements where you have to prove that the field trip serves an educational purpose connected to curriculum. And we're basically forcing all these requirements on parents to meet these tests. And the point is, this program should be easy. These students are getting funded less than public school students. We've already capped the amount they can spend on extracurricular activities, and adding more and more requirements, and also just changing the rules risk losing trust of parents. We need to trust parents. People should sign up. Public comments are open, and your policymakers are ready to hear your comments. So we'd encourage people to reach out if they have concerns.
And I appreciate you being here with me today, and I want you to keep me updated so I can keep the audience updated. I appreciate you coming in, folks. We'll be back after the top of the hour news.